So I think that's what it's about in terms of being a patriot, a progressive patriot. Let me talk about the progressive side. Great inspiration in my state, our hero in our state is Fighting Bob La Follette, Robert M. La Follette. Those of you that know about him, I thank you. If you don't know about him, read about him. He would have been very comfortable in this room. He would have been given a lot better speech, though. He used to be able to give speech for 7 hours without even flinching, and I guess people were mesmerized. You know, the part about the progressive part to me is more the domestic side, that we obviously have an edge on, but it'll be easier. But, you know, it's not automatic, and we know why. Because instead of this administration following what I talked about, following the priorities of the American people, they are professionals at changing the subject. I did those town meetings all over Wisconsin for years. I did all kinds of roundtables on all kinds of subjects during the campaign. And as important as Social Security is, and it is important, nobody hardly ever mentioned it. It's very important. But it isn't in the, maybe it's in the top 10, maybe it's even in the top 5. But it's not in the top 3 things that Americans say is affecting and hurting their families. If you're listening to the American people, if you're listening to families in Tennessee, if you're listening to families in Wisconsin, you will hear them say that their perhaps number one concern is health care. Health care costs. The President doesn't want to talk about that because, gee, you'd have to actually deal with a tough issue. But I'm trying to work with members of the other party and figure out a way we can get this issue on the agenda. I support guaranteed health care for every single American. My late friend Paul Wellstone was a believer in a single-payer system, and so was I. But, you know, just before Paul died, I heard him speak on the floor of the Senate, and he said, you know, I really want to see a single-payer system. He said, but maybe there's a way we could pass a law in Washington and let each state have some flexibility in how they achieve it, and the way that so it fits their state, but within the context, and I know this is relevant to what's going on in Tennessee, within the context that every single person has to be covered at a minimum level. To me, we should be spending our time on Washington on that first, not on a privatization plan that we can't find anybody in Wisconsin even for the privatization plan for Social Security. That's what people talk about. What people talk about in Wisconsin, I'm told the situation is the same here in Tennessee. It's job loss because of bad trade agreements. I listened to people in the 90s and I was told NAFTA is going to be a bad deal. I voted against it. We lost 23,000 manufacturing jobs in Wisconsin to NAFTA alone. Then there was GATT. I voted against that. I voted against most favored nation status for China. And all these raw deals that were tilted toward a totalitarian regime in China and the big corporations, not taking into account the working families in our country or their country, not taking into account the environment, not taking into account health and safety. Well, I'm proud of that record. And I regret that too many Democrats have supported these kinds of bills. Well, we got a chance now to turn that around. We almost won in the Senate on opposing CAFTA, the Central American Free Trade Agreement. It's the same kind of deal. Some people call it NAFTA on steroids. The central point is this, and I want you to contact my friends here who are in Congress. There are words reassuring working people that their rights will be protected in those Central American countries, but there's absolutely no enforcement mechanism. It's a scam. So please, we can win this in the House. We can defeat CAFTA if you get your congressman here to come out against it. So they talk about, obviously, their jobs and the destruction of whole communities in Wisconsin. The third thing they talk about all the time is, why can't we have an energy policy that has something to do with not being dependent on foreign oil? You know, and this is bipartisan. Whether it be a very liberal person in Wisconsin or a business person who's come to the town meeting, they'll say, why don't we have like a Manhattan Project for energy independence, where we take the best ideas, and, you know, it would be great for the environment, it would be great for our national security situation, it would be great for business. A tremendous amount of wonderful jobs that would come out of this. So this is what I hear from people. And this is what I hear from people of all political backgrounds. Let me also say that Don't be afraid to say that, as I said earlier, that we're the party that's been fiscally responsible. I like to kid around that even the Communist Party has to be fiscally responsible, otherwise they'll take away the desks. It really has nothing to do with ideology. It's just you got to make sure the books match up. It's just common sense. And we have the edge on this issue because George Bush has run up the biggest deficit in American history. And I'll tell you, people out there in Tennessee, I'm sure they don't like it any more than the people in Wisconsin. And they will be very attracted to the story of how Bill Clinton, when Bill ran, he did not talk about the deficit at all. It was Ross Perot. But he was responsible enough before he got sworn in to look at the books and he said, we can't have this middle-class tax cut right now. We got to solve the deficit. And he had the courage to do it. At the same time, let's not, as Democrats in the Congress, help the big corporations get their long-time fantasies. Democrats should not have voted for that bankruptcy bill, which was a cruel and harsh law, especially hard on working women. And sadly, we had 3 Democrats vote for the drilling in Alaska. We had 7 Republicans with us. If we had had those folks with us, that provision would not have gone through. We're not done with this. But you know, if we could just stick together on something as fundamental and so across the board as an issue like that, we would do so much better. And finally, we're about to enter a very interesting and difficult period with the choice of at least 1 and perhaps 2 or more Supreme Court justices. It could change the face of this country, as we all know. I'm on the Judiciary Committee. I will be consumed by trying to get this right and doing my job, as will everybody else. But again, as important as that is, don't let it be a basis for completely changing the subject. Don't let it be a basis for not talking about health care for the next 5 months, for not talking about jobs for the next 5 months, for not talking about energy for the next 5 months, for not talking about the disaster that is occurring with the poor planning in Iraq. We must make sure we keep those issues before the American people while we fight for a good and appropriate Supreme Court justice. Let's do that. So I'm asking for your help. We need you and your energy. We will work in all 50 states to try to turn this around. And I'll tell you something, I have a feeling this is going to be one of the great stories, the state of Tennessee. I think it's going to send a message that will upset some of our friends a great deal. Our Progressive Patriots Fund will do a number of things. We're going to work to try to elect progressives all over the country and others who will make sure that we have an opportunity to have a progressive agenda. Our website has a place where you can log on and recommend somebody you want us to help. And then, whether it be a House race or U.S. Senate race or whatever it might be. And then we will make campaign contributions. We'll make visits like this and like that I'm making around the country. I will send in people that help me get reelected and win those 27 Bush counties as field organizers. We will coordinate with you and your wonderful organization. Together we can do it. But I want you to remember one thing, because I always think that when we look forward to all this hard work, we have to remember that to have a good time, to enjoy the process. We've always had a good time in our campaigns. I remember when years ago Harold Macmillan, the conservative Prime Minister of England, died. And I just read a quote that they attributed to him that has always helped me through the various campaigns and things I've done. It said, "Up from humble beginnings, out to the undiscovered ends. There's nothing worth the wear of winning but laughter and the love of friends." So I want you to laugh, I want you to love, and I want you to work hard to win in 2006 and 2008. So much pleasure being here tonight. Thank you very, very much for having me.